Unveiling Dinah, the miraculous journey of Jacob's daughter to divine restoration and redemption. In the 3rd year of Jehoiakim, in the land of Canaan, nestled between the mountains and valleys, there lived a family destined for tumult and transformation. Dinah, the daughter of Jacob and Leah, wandered through the encampment, her heart heavy with a longing that echoed within the silence of her family's strife. The tents of her father were surrounded by whispers of rivalry and tension, leaving her yearning for companionship and understanding. As the sun rose over the plains beyond Shechem, Dinah felt the pull of the vibrant life beckoning her just beyond the borders of her sheltered existence. She had learned the traditions of her household from her mother, wisdom passed down through generations, but the air felt thick with unspoken burdens. Each day she watched as her world shifted on the foundations of discord, her spirit restless. With a determination born of hope and the ache of isolation, she ventured to the city of Shechem, where the market was alive with the clamor of merchants and the rhythm of bustling life. It was here, amidst the colors and sounds, that she first locked eyes with Shechem, the son of Hamor, a young chief whose laughter seemed to dance upon the wind. Captivated by his presence, Dinah felt an exhilarating thrill surge through her, as if she had stepped into a story woven with excitement and possibility. What she did not know was that their fateful encounter would twist her life into shadows. In a moment that would forever alter the course of her existence, Shechem's reckless passion, drawn by desire and displays of power, led to a grievous breach of her trust. Dinah's heart shattered like fragile clay, and with it, her innocence lay in tatters. The pain of this violation was not solely her own. It reverberated through her family, unleashing waves of contempt and sorrow that crashed upon their unity. As news reached the camp, Dinah retreated into despair, a mantle of shame cruelly draped across her shoulders. Her brothers, Simeon and Levi, learned of her anguish, and their hearts ignited with righteous fury. The weight of vengeance thrummed through their veins, and they conspired to reclaim their sister's honor through bloodshed. In their pursuit of justice, the air thickened with tension, threatening to engulf not only their enemies, but the family fabric itself. Before we continue with this incredible biblical account, I want to make sure you don't miss any of these powerful scripture stories. Click the bell icon and select all notifications. These biblical narratives have transformed countless lives throughout history. If God's word through this story is blessing you, please like and share with someone who needs to hear about God's faithfulness today. Tell me in the comments, which biblical story has most impacted your faith journey? I'm always amazed how God's word speaks to hearts across generations.
Now let's continue with what the Lord did next. Dinah stood at the crossroads of despair and hope, her spirit torn as the very earth cracked around her. In the sanctuary of her solitude, she cried out to Yahweh, seeking solace amid her chaos. A flicker of divine truth ignited within her as she turned towards the depths of grace. She began to understand that her identity was not defined by the shadows of a moment, but by the unyielding love of the Almighty, who could weave restoration from even the most painful fabrics of life. As bloodshed filled the land, Dinah faced her chapter of healing, a journey requiting hope amid sorrow. Would she rise as a testament to resilience? The tension of her choices loomed, inviting her to cling steadfastly to faith. The unfolding of her story lingered just out of reach, urging her to seek divine resolution in the midst of turmoil, as her heart embarked on an arduous pilgrimage toward redemption. And it came to pass that Simeon and Levi, emboldened by the flames of indignation, gathered their swords and resolved to act under the banner of vengeance. They entered into a covenant with their brethren, declaring, "Shall our sister be treated as a harlot?" With such words they stirred the hearts of their kinsmen, binding them in an oath of blood. As twilight fell over the hills of Shechem, the sound of orchestrated wrath resounded. The sons of Jacob set forth, their hearts steeled with the intent to deliver their sister from disgrace. Their minds clouded by rage, they plotted to strike deeply at the very heart of the city. Yet unbeknownst to them, the omniscient gaze of the Lord was upon their deeds, and his purposes were already in motion. Meanwhile, Dinah, entangled in her own sorrow, sought refuge in the corners of her mind. Will any solace come? She pondered, praying for a flicker of hope amid relentless shadows. In her solitude, the weight of her brother's actions loomed over her heart, unsettling the fragile peace she had begun to cultivate. As the moon cast its silver light, illuminating the path ahead, the brothers moved with the stealth of hunters, camouflaged in the embrace of darkness. They approached Shechem city, where their brothers and clansmen lay unaware, drinking in feasts as if no storm loomed over their heads. Suddenly, like a swift wind, the brothers struck as one, forcing the city to wake in terror. The clamor of battle erupted as swords clashed and cries of despair filled the air. Simeon and Levi led the charge, their hearts pumping with righteous vigor, fueled by the pain of their sister. Yet in the midst of their violence erupted a whisper from the depths of Dinah's heart. Was this the way of honor, or of further shame? While chaos unfolded, Dinah found herself entangled in contrasting emotions. She longed for restoration, yet wrestled with the fear of escalated wrath. Within her chest, her heart began to beat for a different kind of justice, one that would heal rather than break.
She raised her eyes to the heavens in prayer, beseeching the God of Jacob to help her navigate the tempest that howled around her. And in that moment of fervent supplication, a soft voice spoke within her. Trust in me, Dinah, for what is built on flesh shall crumble, but what is founded upon my love shall endure. Strengthened by that divine message, Dinah chose to be a vessel of peace. As the battle within the city raged on, an unforeseen miracle took place. Amongst the clamor, a wearied yet resolute Shechem heard her name carried on the winds of despair. Driven by love and desperation, he sought Dinah, believing in the possibility of reconciliation. Dinah, come forth! I shall not let this act of anger define us, he cried into the storm, his own heart grieved by the chaos erupting around him. One by one, the sons of Jacob rounded their foes, blinded by rage, but Dinah's heart yearned for a path that had yet to be forged. Would she align with the thirst for blood, or step away from the patterns of destruction? And as the dawn began to break over the horizon, lighting the world in hues of gold, an unexpected choice loomed ahead. Would Dinah emerge as a beacon of grace, reshaping her family's destiny? But what Dinah did not yet realize was that her very choice would resonate through generations to come, as the plan of the Almighty unfolded, a purpose woven within discord, leading to an uncharted covenant of peace. The story was far from over. It was just beginning. As the sun crested the hills, igniting the sky in hues of rose and gold, the tumult of Shechem lay before the sons of Jacob. The cries of the aggrieved mingled with the clang of swords, echoing through the valley as they stood victorious in their wrath. Yet, amidst the spoils of their anger, a profound unease gripped Simeon and Levi's hearts, for they had unsheathed violence in the name of honor, but struck at the very soul of justice. "Let us return," shouted Levi, his voice a mixture of triumph and turmoil. "What of our sister? Is she to remain lost in these ashes of blood?" In that moment, while the brothers considered their next steps, Dinah emerged from the shadows of her confinement, the weight of her decision weighing heavy upon her heart. The sounds of conflict surrounded her, yet her spirit yearned for peace. "Shechem," she called out into the echoes of chaos, her voice trembling with fear and hope. "I am here!" Shechem, amidst the ruins of his own heart, caught her plea and turned, his eyes alight with desperation. "Dinah," he exclaimed, rushing toward her, pushing aside the remnants of destruction, "you are not defined by the rage that surrounds us. We can forge a new path together." Yet the sons of Jacob, inflamed by their anger, caught sight of the two, their hands tightened around their weapons, prepared to unleash further wrath. "What treachery is this?" "Simeon!" cried Simeon, stepping forward, sword gleaming in the new light of dawn. "You, Shechem, shall not harm her again." Dinah, emboldened by an inner strength fueled by her plea to the Almighty, stepped in between her brothers and Shechem. "Stop! You do not understand!" she cried, her voice ringing clear and true over the tumult. "We are not merely victims of this tragedy. We have the power to choose a different destiny." Her brothers faltered, their fury momentarily quelled by the sincerity that dripped from her words. They exchanged glances, the weight of love and protection wrestling with their desire for vengeance. "Do you truly believe that peace is still possible?" asked Levi, lowering his sword slightly, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "Yes," Dinah replied, her voice steady. "In facing our pain, we can either perpetuate the cycle of destruction or rise above it. Let us seek a path that restores rather than divides." At that moment, the air thickened with divine presence, as if heaven itself paused to listen. The heart of Jacob's daughter and the spirit of Shechem, once tangled in sorrow and violence, now stood before the threshold of grace.
A silence fell upon the chaotic remnants. The winds hushed and the cries quieted. The choice lingered, suspended in the sacred stillness. Would they forge an unbreakable bond through forgiveness, or would blood necessitate further blood? And as the brothers wrestled with their heart's turmoil, the Lord's purpose shone through the veil of conflict, echoing throughout the skies. "For I know the plans I have for you," declares the Lord. A whisper found its way to Dinah, with the promise of a future filled with hope. Dinah, emboldened by this promise, turned to face both her family and Shechem, her heart aflame with renewed purpose. Let us seek a covenant, not merely between two houses, but a bridge for the healing of many. At that instant, the weight of her decision cascaded further than her own understanding, as the fingers of the Almighty intertwined the fates of nations yet to be born through her courageous act. Thus, Dinah stood at the crossroads, her spirit soaring with the realization that her choice would echo throughout the ages, setting in motion a narrative destined for redemption. And little did she know, a great mystery awaited. The generations to unfold would yet weave a tapestry of divine restoration, and from the ashes of hatred, new life would flourish as the pages of history turned in God's sovereign plan. As the silence enveloped them, a profound tension hung in the air, thick with unshed tears and unspoken hopes. Dinah stood resolute, heart beating in rhythm with the promise that had ignited a fire within her soul. Her brothers, still caught in the throes of their conflicting emotions, hesitated. "Simeon, Levi," she said softly, "we are called to be more than conquerors in bloodshed. Our family bears the weight of our choices. Shall we continue this cycle, or shall we choose a legacy of healing?" Simeon lowered his sword further, uncertainties swirling like storm clouds over his brow. "What would that cost us, Dinah?" he asked, the steel of his voice tempered by wonder. "What do you propose?" Dinah stepped closer to Shechem, a bridge between two worlds. "Let them speak. Let us listen to what truth unfolds here. Peace is not born of silence, but of understanding." As the sun shimmered overhead, casting golden rays upon the estranged figures, Shechem took a step forward. "I sought your sister not to oppress, but to love," he articulated, his eyes fierce and sincere. "I have wronged her, but I wish to show my devotion. Let us make a covenant that speaks louder than our past." A murmur rippled through the assembled onlookers, families, tribes, warriors grasping at the fading embers of conflict. The very breeze seemed to whisper of change. Levi, bound by the relentless desire for vengeance, found himself questioning the righteousness of his rage. "But can trust ever be rebuilt?" he asked, looking upon Dinah's steadfast expression. "Trust is forged in the crucible of choice," Dinah replied with unyielding strength. "Let us be that which we seek. If we extend our hands instead of swords, we may unearth a new future." Her faith held their attention, each heartbeat echoing the weight of her words, as though a divine court were convening above them. Then came a voice from the shadows, the eldest of the women of Shechem, a matron of wisdom renowned for her discernment. "I have seen many battles waged only to bear bitter fruit. What you propose, young Dinah, is not without risk, but it is the seed of grace." With this fortifying declaration, the hearts of those who gathered began to shift. The peaceable sound of hope brushed over their spirits, yet the brothers wrestled still with the remnants of conviction. A heavy silence followed, as the wind danced lightly, caressing the tension lingering in their hearts. Yet the eyes of Dinah, glistening like polished jewels, held the essence of love that belied the pain of the past. "What if the Lord desires us to tread this unknown path?" she urged. "What if our future generations must learn from our courage to heal?" In that moment of stillness, a glimmer of understanding washed over Simeon. What if by embracing this union we could be vessels of God's reconciliation, he pondered, his disbelief yielding under the weight of divine inspiration. And as Jacob's sons mulled over the prospect, the skies darkened momentarily, revealing the gravity of decisions that loomed. Could bloodshed transform into a lineage of peace? The great mystery of their covenant unfurled like a tapestry, entwining destinies that were yet unknown. In the unfolding of that moment, they would someday learn how God could weave beauty from ashes, a testament to his unyielding sovereignty.
But beneath the surface of their collective reckoning lay a deeper truth, a revelation yet unfathomed. The hearts of nations would be stirred, and in their choices a ripple would be felt through the corridors of time. "Indeed," spoke Dinah with an unwavering voice, "what the Lord has united may endure for ages. Will you join me in this new way?" Thus they stood at the brink of history, poised to embark on a journey of redemption. Little did they know, beyond their resolution, the heavens held a greater plan, whispering the promise of a lineage that would ultimately fulfill God's purpose across generations. As the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting the land into a tapestry of warm hues, the dialogue hung suspended in time. Dinah's resolute heart beat like a drum, echoing the turbulent thoughts of her family. Around her, the other daughters of Jacob and the elders of the city watched with bated breath, feeling the weight of the moment as the shroud of uncertainty hovered above them. Simeon, with a heart tugged between resolution and the anger of inflicted wounds, shifted his gaze from Dinah to Shechem, whose eyes burned with earnest yearning. "If we choose this path," he said slowly, "what assurance do we have that our sister will be protected? What if this covenant binds us to a fate more grievous than the one we seek to mend?" At these words, the elder woman from Shechem stepped forward again, her matronly presence commanding their attention. "We are not bound to past transgressions, but are called to forge a future. As the sun rises anew each day, so can the hearts of men be reborn. You stand at the precipice of choice. Embrace it, for within lies the destiny of both our peoples." Levi clenched his fists, grappling with the unsettling echoes of vengeance that roared within him. The fires of rage danced dangerously close to consuming him. Yet as he beheld the spirit of Dinah, her determination tempered with grace, something began to shift in his heart. "Would our forefathers rejoice at this union?" he pondered aloud, his voice a husky whisper, as if the thought itself held sacred weight. "In time they shall, if we walk in wisdom and love," Dinah replied softly, stepping ever closer to Shechem. "Consider the legacy of our example, dear brothers. This decision may very well be the key to healing the wounds of our covenant, not merely as Israelites, but as children of the Most High." A hush enveloped the crowd as it witnessed the stirring of a pivotal moment. Eyes exchanged glances, and breaths held fast, for the unfolding of God's will hovered in the air like incense rising to the heavens. In the stillness, Shechem's voice broke the silence once more, emboldened by the weighty atmosphere. "I offer you my heart," he declared, arms spread wide, inviting acceptance not merely of his hand in marriage, but of love as a redemptive force.
Let this covenant not be grounded in fear or loathing, but in the hope of something greater, transcending our past. Upon hearing these words, Dinah's heart swelled, resonating with a truth that felt birthed from the very fabric of creation. "Then let us forge this bond," she said, her voice unwavering and filled with hope. "Let it be a beacon of light, piercing through the veil of darkness that has cloaked our families for too long." One by one, Dinah's brothers moved from their positions of uncertainty. Simeon, emboldened by divine insight, leaned toward Levi, who stood still yet visibly shaken. "What say you? Shall we cast aside our swords for a deeper purpose?" As if awakened from a deep slumber, Levi nodded, an unexpected warmth sweeping over him. "If we place our trust in the hands of the Almighty, perhaps He will guide us through this union into a future that could be brighter." And in that shared resolve, a great whisper surged through the assembly, a quiver of anticipation that hinted at heavenly designs. The hearts of men and women stirred, and a new narrative began to take form, woven through faith, forgiveness, and the reckoning of choices made. Yet, unbeknownst to them, a greater tapestry emerged. The foundations of this newfound covenant had deeper implications, entwining promises spoken long ago, how through them the nations would find a light that could not be dimmed. In the silent embrace of the night, a sense of divine satisfaction descended, for the Lord was showing them that their union bore more than familial bonds. It held the keys to redemptive history. As they stood there, absorbed in this moment of profound commitment, a flicker of wonder stirred in the depths of Dinah's heart. What she did not yet comprehend was that this covenant would become a catalyst for events beyond their wildest imaginations, an echo of hope resounding through the ages, foretelling a deliverance that would one day change the world. As the shadows lengthened around the gathered multitude, a divine stillness enveloped the scene. The air crackled with an unspoken tension, each heart in the crowd attuned to the holy moment unfolding before their eyes. Dinah stood resolute, her spirit a beacon of hope amidst swirling doubts. At that hour, it was Simeon who took a step forward, his resolve fortified by the momentous decision they were poised to seal. "Shall we not lay down our grievances and embrace the sacred thread of union?" he implored his brothers, his voice steady with conviction. "Let us remember the words of the Most High, who commanded us to love one another, for in that love is where our strength lies." With eyes aflame, Shechem listened intently, sensing the undercurrent of faith woven through Simeon's plea. "Indeed, let this union be the testimony that love conquers all," he affirmed. His voice resounded over the assembly, echoing the sentiments long buried in both families' hearts.
Then Dinah, emboldened by the spirit of reconciliation, stepped closer to Shechem, reaching for his hand with an earnestness that transcended mere words. "Let us not hesitate," she encouraged, her gaze bright with fervor. "Together, we can stand against the weight of our ancestors' mistakes and choose a new destiny, one that sings of healing and restoration." As she spoke, Dinah's brothers exchanged glances that spoke volumes, an unspoken understanding igniting between them. It was as if a divine spark had leapt among them, igniting their hearts to embrace the possibility of a future unshackled from the burdens of the past. In the crowd, murmurs of approval began to swell, a rising tide of voices urging the families toward the threshold of promise. The elders of Shechem nodded, eyes glistening with the welling hope born of Dinah's courage and Shechem's sincerity. And as the evening wore on, a covenant was established beneath the vibrant colors of the fading sun, a sacred pact under the watchful gaze of heaven. With a word of agreement, Shechem and Dinah pledged their hearts, while their families joined in, binding themselves to a journey of mutual respect and understanding. Yet in the distance a specter loomed, an unseen consequence awaiting its moment. For as they sealed this sacred bond, the hearts of Jacob's sons simmered with unquenched rage. Levi and Simeon, emboldened by the spark of unity, yet haunted by their own shadows, began to contemplate the balance between familial honor and blood-stained vengeance. "Fear not, my brethren," Levi spoke, but the conflict simmered beneath his brave facade. "Our actions must reflect our words if we are to uphold Dinah's hope for peace." And yet in the recesses of their hearts lingered the bitter echoes of past injustices, whispering that redemption could come at a cost. Meanwhile, the elders gathered in clusters, their wisdom weighing heavily upon the assembly. "The decisions made this night shall ripple through generations," one elder warned, his voice a soft tremor in the evening air. "We must remain watchful that our hearts do not stray away from the path of righteousness." As dusk settled over the land, the newly formed bond among the families seemed a fragile yet potent flame, flickering against the winds of doubt. What none could foresee was the unfolding of a divine narrative far grander than imagined, a tapestry knit of redemption that would withstand even the fiercest storms. And hidden in this moment, the sovereign Lord moved, setting into motion a brilliant display of his purposes through this covenant. For what they did not yet understand was that their choices would usher in a legacy that would transcend nations and alter the very fabric of history, revealing the profound mystery of God's unfathomable grace. Yet as the full moon casted silvery glow, whispering promises of what was to come, a question hung in the balance, unanswered. What trials lay ahead, and how would the Almighty fulfill his purpose through this unlikely alliance? The winds of destiny began to shift, heralding a future entangled in both hope and divine trial, a journey that was only just beginning. As the night deepened and the stars twinkled like heavenly diamonds, a silence fell upon the assembly, thick with the weight of unspoken truths. Dinah glanced around, witnessing the tension knitted between familial ties and unyielding past grievances. In her heart,
She feared that what they had begun could be torn asunder by the claws of vengeance that clawed at their souls. "Brothers," Dinah's voice rang out, catching the attention of all, "do not let shadows of yesterday sow discord among us. We must rise above the past, for the God of my father Jacob has promised us peace." Her words, bold and fervent, struck a chord in the hearts present, stirring both hope and hesitation. "But what if our peace is built on a lie?" Levi retorted, a fire burning in his eyes. "Shechem, although sincere, carries the stain of violence that has tainted our bloodline. Are we to turn a blind eye?" His question hung heavy in the air like a dark cloud, conjuring whispers among the spectators. Simeon stepped forth again, his brow furrowed and voice steady. "Is it not written, 'Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God'? In this sacred assembly, let us weave the threads of our common humanity, not fray them with the sword." His fervent plea ignited a flicker of understanding, yet the weight of doubt tethered them still. In the quiet, an elder of Shechem approached Dinah, his face etched with wisdom. "Child of Jacob, your courage is commendable, yet to embrace a bond with our kin, a bond forged in love, calls for commitment beyond mere words. Are you prepared to bear its fruit, however sweet or bitter?" His inquiry pierced Dinah's heart, prompting her to reflect deeply. "Yes," she said, voice unwavering yet tender, "I shall embrace whatever the Lord has set before me, for I believe this is the beginning of a new heritage." The sincerity of her declaration ignited many within earshot, and she noted the stirring of emotion in the crowd. But doubt still haunted the minds of her brothers. Simeon's gaze darkened. The curse of Jacob had bound their hearts, much like a tangled cord. What if our actions invite the wrath of those around us? The very tribes who resent us may conspire against our unity. It was in that moment of perilous questioning, a voice emerged from the shadows, a stranger whose skin bore the hues of the land, eyes hollow from burden. "What is unity without sacrifice? The bonds you forge tonight must be carried on the backs of bravery. So long as hatred festers, no alliance is safe." Words of caution swirled in the air, mingling with newfound fervor and determination. Trust must bloom where thorns once grew.
This became the unspoken oath among the gathering, no longer merely bound by blood, but ignited by a shared hope of redemption. As they deliberated, divine plans were aligning beyond their understanding. Hidden within the unfolding chaos was a sculptor of destinies. The Lord's hand was crafting a narrative of salvation that would ripple through the ages. Just as the moon shone down upon the weary gathering, illuminating the path ahead, the ground began to tremble beneath them, a portentous sign of God's presence. With each quake, hearts raced. They had ventured into uncharted territory, where faith clashed with fear, violence with tenderness. What none of them knew was the greater plan being unveiled, for this covenant would shape not only their fates, but the future of nations. In that luminous night, the question lingered. How would the threads of their lives weave into the grand tapestry of divine redemption? And what trials must they endure to fulfill the promises made by the Almighty? The air vibrated with tension, an echo of the Lord's sovereign design, waiting to be revealed. As the ground continued to tremble in its reverent communion with the heavens, a hush fell over the assembly. Eyes turned skyward, half expecting a flame to descend, or the voice of the Lord to echo through the night. Dinah felt the weight of anticipation pressing against her chest. The hearts of her brothers were like stony altars, hard and unyielding, yet she sensed a flicker of hope hiding amid the doubt. "Look to the heavens," Dinah implored. "If the Lord desires unity among us, does he not also require that we lay our fears upon the altar of sacrifice? We must live in the light of his promise." Her hands lifted, beseeching the assembly for their attention, and for a moment, the air shimmered with divine possibility. A flicker of awareness passed among the gathered kin. Was it true that desolation could yield to hope, that amidst the ruins of their enmity, something beautiful might spring forth?
Simeon, wrestling with his own inner turmoil, could feel the embers of his brother's disapproval soften slightly. "Then let us speak plainly," Simeon said, his voice now closer to a whisper, yet laden with intensity. "Is reconciliation possible with Shechem, or are we merely placing our trust in the uncertain shadows?" Dinah's answer was swift and resolute. "What is impossible for man is possible for God. He has promised us a legacy that we cannot see, yet I believe in its fruition. Through this act of love, we shall rise above all bitterness." Her passionate declaration opened the door, allowing light to filter through the cracks of distrust. Elder Shechem, an embodiment of wisdom, took a step closer, his voice steady as a mountain. "The bonds you seek to forge shall not come without testing. Trust, once gained, must be protected." His eyes turned to those who had traveled from the hills, warriors of the land, whose hearts echoed the ancient codes of honor.
The murmurs thickened. The men of Shechem shifted their gazes, seeking counsel among each other. Levi felt an unease creep upon him, his heart torn between the desire for family and the burden of legacy. "If blood cries out from the ground, how shall we answer?" He sought clarity, seeking divine intervention in this moment of turmoil. But even as he questioned, there came a unity, a stirring of voices resonating in agreement. "We must heed the cry for love," one warrior voiced, his stature towering but his heart softened. "In sacrifice lies the seeds of peace." And so a covenant birthed in uncertainty began to take form. As Dinah stood at the center, the moonlight cast a halo about her, illuminating her spirit with divine authority. "Tonight may we declare our allegiance not only to our families, but to the Almighty Creator. From discord to harmony, may we embrace each other not as enemies, but as kindred spirits." It was then that a deep rumble echoed across the valley, a sign of divine agreement. Hearts began to soften as the truth settled like dew upon parched ground. They realized that healing was not forged in silence, but through the costly embrace of vulnerability and love. As the assembly joined hands, Shaul, an elder from Shechem, stepped forward to lay his hand upon Dinah's shoulder. "We are willing to honor your decision, but know this: unity demands accountability from all parties. What shall your father Jacob say? What say the tribes that stand against us?" The question hung in the air, a challenge, a test of their newfound bonds. A heaviness settled among the brothers, their eyes darting in uncertainty. In that pregnant pause, Dinah, emboldened by grace, spoke forth, "Let us approach my father as bearers of goodwill, for if God is for us, who can be against us?" As her words floated into the night, they carried with them an assurance that resonated in the hearts of many. Yet within the shadows slightly lifted remained unease, for the threads of divine promise were woven in mystery. What trials awaited them upon their journey towards reconciliation? In that moment, the air around them shimmered once more with the presence of God's Spirit, setting the course for the birth of something greater than their understanding. The wheels of fate began to turn, aligning the hearts of nations, and beneath the surface swirled the question: what destiny awaited Dinah, and how would her integrity shape the course of history? Thus the stage was set, and the hearts were prepared. But above all, the revelation of God's sovereign plan began to unfold, infused with the promise of redemption and metamorphosis that only He could orchestrate. As the assembly settled into a tentative tranquility, Dinah felt the weight of her calling intensify. The gaze of her brothers, so often marred by anger, now revealed a tapestry of emotions woven with threads of hope and apprehension. She took a deep breath, inhaling the sweet scent of the evening air, filled with the fragrance of anticipation and uncertainty. "Brothers," Dinah began, her voice steady yet gentle, "we stand on the precipice of something profound. Let us not turn back in fear, nor allow our hearts to waver in doubt, for I sense within me the stirring of the Lord's promise, a promise that binds our futures to one another and to Him." Levi, still troubled yet intrigued, spoke softly, "What if our father, Jacob, hears of this? Will he not see the wounds of deceit and dishonor that have been inflicted? Will he not grieve for our hurts?" "Indeed," Dinah affirmed,
But let us remember how our Father treasures unity among his sons. The Lord values not the perfection of men, but the desire to mend what is broken. Just as our forefather Abraham stood in the gap for Sodom, let us also intercede with willing hearts. At this, Simeon lowered his head, wrestling with the memory of their tarnished honor against the spirit of reconciliation that now flickered before them. "What shall we say when we approach our father?" he asked, seeking the wisdom that only the Lord could provide. Shaul of Shechem, still looming with seriousness, interjected, "You must weave your words with truth and grace. Present yourselves not as conquerors seeking revenge, but as brothers seeking redemption. Let the legacy of your unity echo louder than the cries of anger." The men of Shechem, stirred by the gravity of this moment, nodded in solemn agreement. They faced each other, warriors turned peacemakers, yearning for a bond that could weather the storms of their past. As Dinah considered the next words uttered, a thought resonated deep within her spirit. Let us offer him our hands and hearts. We shall present a covenant of goodwill, forged in sincerity of purpose. In her voice there was a strength that aroused affection and commitment among the weary brothers. With newfound resolve, the company began to march toward the tents, their steps echoing a rhythm of unity. Propelled by the promise of restoration, they became a living testament of God's grace among them. The moon cast a luminous glow, shedding its light upon their path, a silent witness to their endeavor. Approaching the familiar tent where their father dwelt, Dinah felt her heart quicken. Fear and hope intertwined within her as she turned to her brothers with expectation. "Remember, we speak not for ourselves alone, but for the generations to come. Our action tonight shall bear witness unto the nations." As they entered the tent, Jacob sat by the fire, a man's bearing of authority dimmed only by a heart shaded with deep concerns. The sight of his beloved children cloaked in coalition ignited a flicker of curiosity. "What message do you bring, my sons?" he asked, a tremor of both anxiety and anticipation lacing his words. Before the brothers could respond, Dinah stepped forward, her heart wholly dedicated to the mission ordained by God.
As each brother stood beside her, their united presence spoke volumes. "Father," she began, her voice steady and full of purpose, "we have come to you not to sow discord, but to cultivate peace." A silence settled over the tent, pregnant with the weight of unveilings yet to come. The air crackled with divine expectation as Jacob peered into their faces, questioning and hopeful. And just then, a profound stillness descended, hanging over them like a portentous peace, as if the very heavens witnessed the symphony of their restoration. Nebulous clouds shifted above them, and in the moment of divine anticipation, a revelation lingered just beyond their understanding. What greater trials and triumphs awaited this family, united under God's sovereign plan? For unbeknownst to them, the true journey toward restoration was just beginning. Beyond the veil of their resolve lay the intricate web of divine purpose, intertwining their destinies with nations yet unwritten, as God prepared their hearts to face the unfolding of his sacred narrative. In the days that followed the sacred gathering beneath the stars, the very fabric of Jacob's family began to shift, woven anew by the threads of redemption and reconciliation. Dinah, once cloaked in shame, now walked with a spirit of courage, her heart aflame with the promise of a legacy that would resonate through the ages. As the sun ascended each morning, painting the sky in brilliant hues, the atmosphere of the encampment transformed. It breathed a fresh life filled with hope. Dinah and Shechem stood before their families, not merely as figures entwined by bloodshed, but as harbingers of a covenant founded on peace. The winds of change swept across their camp, ushering forth a new era marked by the healing of old wounds. One day, as Dinah stood at the edge of the encampment, gazing out at the vast expanse of Canaan, she felt a whisper upon her heart. "What once divided shall unite," she mused, aware that their choice to embrace forgiveness would weave a profound narrative throughout their lineage. "Your courage is a lamp, illuminating the path of our people," Shechem affirmed as he joined her, a newfound tenderness filling his voice. Together they dreamt of a future where harmony flourished,
And as they shared their vision, the echoes of Dinah's transformation resounded in the hearts of those who bore witness. Meanwhile, the sons of Jacob deliberated amongst themselves, wrestling with the implications of their pact with Shechem. Simeon, now transformed by the light of conviction, spoke candidly, "Let us not allow past grievances to cloud our judgment. Dinah has taught us that healing begins with understanding." His brothers nodded, their hearts resonating with this divine truth. Levi, still grappling with the remnants of rage, found himself drawn toward this uncharted way of peace.
Though I have fought for honor with a sword, my heart now longs for the resolve that binds us. Family does not need to be forged in blood, but in the strength of unity, he declared, recognizing that their collective destiny was tethered to their decisions. As news of the newfound peace spread throughout the tribes of Israel, the winds carried whispers of hope, and many came forth, eager to witness the sacred union between Dinah and Shechem. Vibrant gatherings emerged, and families mingled, forging friendships that once lay buried beneath ancient enmities. The elders of both clans stood in silent amazement, marveling at the healing flowing forth from the very heart of the covenant. Thus, as harvests ripened and the fields flourished, so too did the bonds of loyalty and respect between the descendants of Jacob and the inhabitants of Shechem. Dinah and Shechem's union bore fruit, giving rise to generations that would come to know the blessings of reconciliation, hearts knit together through shared experiences and love that transcended their tumultuous beginnings. As the years turned into decades, Dinah's legacy grew, rooted and grounded in the manifold witness of God's redemptive grace. In the twilight of her life, she often reflected on the journey taken from shadows into light. A vision that had once eluded her now stood embodied in her children and grandchildren, centuries of understanding woven through stories of peace. In solemn moments, she would recount the tales of those shrouded in darkness, drawing wisdom from her own transformation. The path we choose not only shapes our lives, but echoes through the corridors of time, she would tell her family, instilling within them the value of compassion and the covenant made, a promise never to return to the habits of vengeance. And so, Dinah's story became a beloved fable narrated by their descendants, a reminder that the heart of God thrums within the ebb and flow of human experience. Just as he transformed her shame into honor, he invites each of his children to embark on journeys of healing and redemption. And the world bore witness to the enduring principle that was birthed from her story, a reminder that peace not only weaves nations together, but glimmers brightly in the face of adversity, illuminating paths where once only shadows lingered. Thus they lived out their days as a testament to God's unwavering faithfulness, lives intricately woven in his sovereign plan, fulfilling his eternal purposes across generations intertwined by love and grace. As we reflect on the miraculous journey of Dinah, let us remember to let compassion lead us, casting aside the burdens of the past and embracing the gift of reconciliation. For in his divine orchestration, we too are called to rise as vessels of peace. Please, if this message ignites hope within you, we invite you to subscribe immediately to our channel to not miss the next powerful biblical stories that can transform your life.
Leave a like now to help spread God's word through the algorithm to reach more souls. Comment your spiritual reflections. How has Dinah's journey impacted your faith? And share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to hear God's truth. This is the moment to help spread biblical truth, to be vessels of hope and healing in a world that desperately needs it. Don't wait even one more second to share this powerful testimony.